From your first breath, and every day since, I have gladly provided.
Amidst the comfort we often take for granted, there lies a deeper reality, an obscured realm where time weaves itself into a harrowing narrative of enduring pain. Locked away in shadowed confines, these individuals became prisoners of chilling and prolonged torment. Their stories, veiled in darkness and isolation, resonate with the unfathomable depths of human resilience, ensnared for years within the chilling grasp of captivity. Their narratives transcend the ordinary, revealing a haunting odyssey of unparalleled suffering. These chilling accounts unravel the very essence of endurance, beckoning us to confront the profound and protracted nightmares faced by these innocent souls. Join us as we embark on an exploration into these chilling tales. In May 1977, 20-year-old Colleen Stan was hitchhiking in Oregon when Cameron Hooker and his wife Janice pulled up in their van. They offered her a ride, and despite initial hesitation, Colleen accepted, trusting the seemingly friendly couple with their baby in the back. However, Cameron had dark plans. He pulled off onto a deserted road and, at knife point, forced Colleen into a wooden box he'd built in the back of the van. This cramped and soundproof box became Colleen's prison for the next 7 years. Cameron drove to his home in Red Bluff, California, where the nightmare truly began. He conditioned Colleen through a terrifying mix of physical and psychological abuse, forcing her into a submissive state. She was imprisoned in the box for 23 hours a day, subjected to sexual assaults, and threatened with death if she disobeyed. During the few hours she was allowed out, she had to pretend to be Janice's mute housemaid, which further deepened her isolation. Despite the horrific circumstances, Colleen's spirit never completely broke. She developed coping mechanisms, secretly learning about the Hookers' lives and even attending family events disguised as Janice's friend. She also formed a strange bond with Janice, who was herself trapped in her own loveless marriage. In 1984, a breakthrough came. Janice, tired of Cameron's abuse and increasingly sympathetic toward Colleen, helped her escape. They drove to Nevada, and Janice anonymously dropped Colleen off at a police station. Initially disbelieving, the police eventually corroborated her story, leading to Cameron's arrest. Cameron Hooker was convicted of kidnapping, assault, and other charges, receiving a 104-year sentence. Janice was granted immunity for her role in the escape. Later a movie and a TV series was created on her life. Colleen, understandably traumatized, sought therapy and eventually shared her story publicly, becoming an advocate for survivors of abuse and trauma. In 1998, 10-year-old 𝗟̱ciaः𝗴𝗃𝗀𝗀 was snatched from Vienna on her way to school. Her kidnapper, Wolfgang Pricklepil, imprisoned her in a hidden cellar beneath his garage for the next 8 years. He subjected her to physical and psychological abuse, controlling her through isolation, deprivation, and manipulation. Despite the darkness, Natasha clung to hope, secretly educating herself with stolen books and radio broadcasts. In 2006, a rare opportunity presented itself. Pricklepil, distracted by a mundane errand, left the cellar door unlocked. Seizing the chance, Natasha escaped and flagged down his neighbor, leading to Pricklepil's arrest and suicide shortly after. The world was stunned by her ordeal and captivated by her courage. Following therapy in privacy, Natasha gradually reintegrated into society. She wrote a bestseller detailing her experience, 3096 Days, and founded a foundation to help victims of trauma. However, adjusting to freedom proved challenging. The trauma left deep scars, and media pressure added to the burden. Today, Natasha leads a private life but remains a public figure advocating for victims of abuse and urging for increased mental health awareness. From 2002 to 2013, the seemingly unassuming house on Seymour Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, held a dark secret. Ariel Castro, a bus driver, held 3 young women captive for a combined total of nearly 11 years. His victims: Michelle Knight was kidnapped in 2002, Amanda Berry in 2003, and Gina de Jesus in 2004. They were imprisoned in chains in a basement dungeon, enduring physical and psychological abuse, isolation, and unimaginable horror. The women were bound in chains, often tethered to beds or walls, stripping them of any semblance of freedom and control. The dungeon itself became a constant symbol of their powerlessness. Physical and psychological abuse: Castro inflicted unimaginable physical torture, including beatings, starvation, and forced medical procedures. He also deployed psychological tactics like isolation, manipulation, and threats to keep them in abject fear, deprivation, and degradation. Denied basic necessities like proper food, hygiene, facilities, and sunlight. The women were subjected to physical and emotional degradation. Castro used their needs as weapons, further tightening his control. All 3 women endured the theft of their youth and personal identities, forced to live under Castro's twisted rules. In May 2013, Michelle Knight, with Amanda Berry and her newborn daughter conceived in captivity, managed a daring escape. Michelle lured Ariel Castro out and Amanda tackled him, allowing them to call for help and raise the alarm. Gina de Jesus was also freed, and the horrific truth of Castro's crimes came to light. Castro was arrested and pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including kidnapping, rape, and assault. He was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 1,000 years without parole. However, he died by suicide just a month into his sentence. Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina de Jesus began the long road to rebuilding their lives. Each faced unique challenges, dealing with physical and emotional trauma. They have shared their stories publicly, raising awareness about human trafficking and inspiring resilience in countless survivors. While the physical chains were broken in 2013, the psychological scars of their captivity continue to mark the survivors' lives. Genie Wiley was born on April 18, 1957, Los Angeles, California, U.S. When she was 20 months old, her father locked her in a room and strapped her down on a potty chair with little to no human interaction or stimulation of any kind for like 12 years. The reason why Genie's father did this is also very unsettling. Genie's father mostly grew up in orphanages in the American Pacific Northwest. His father died of a lightning strike and his mother ran a brothel while only infrequently seeing him. Additionally, his mother gave him a feminine first name, Pearl, which made him the target of constant derision. As a result, he harbored extreme resentment towards his mother during childhood, which Genie's brother and the scientists who studied Genie believed was the root of his subsequent anger problems. When Genie's father reached adulthood, he changed his first name to one which was more typically masculine, Clark, and his mother began to spend as much time with him as she could. He became almost singularly fixated on his mother. Unfortunately, when Genie was 20 months old, her paternal grandmother died in a hit-and-run traffic accident. Her death affected Genie's father far beyond normal levels of grief, and because his son had been walking with her, he held his son responsible, further heightening his anger. When the truck's driver received only a probationary sentence for both manslaughter and drunk driving, he became delusional with rage. Scientists believe these events made him feel society had failed him and convinced him he would need to protect his family from the outside world, and that in doing so he lacked the self-awareness to recognize the destruction his actions caused. A girl was raised in a dark, isolated room with no indication of an outside world for the first 13 years of her life. Her father was incredibly abusive. He only gave her baby food and beat her every time she made a sound. in 1970 while Genie's father was out shopping for groceries. Her mother took Genie to a social services office, where a social worker noticed Genie's condition. When authorities rescued her, she couldn't speak at all and only made infantile noises. At first they assumed autism, then they discovered she could not talk. She was incontinent and salivated and spat. She had 2 nearly complete sets of teeth. Extra teeth in such cases are known as supernumeraries, a rare dental condition. She could barely chew or swallow, and could not fully focus her eyes or extend her limbs. She weighed just 59 pounds, which is 26 kilograms, and it turned out she was 13 years old. Genie's parents were arrested and charged with abuse. The charges against Genie Wiley were dismissed in 1975 after her attorney argued that she too was a victim of her husband's abuse and had never been willfully cruel to Genie. Clark Wiley died by suicide shortly before he was scheduled to appear in court. Meanwhile, Genie was admitted to Children's Hospital Los Angeles on November 4, 1970. The isolation had affected her so much that though she had normal vision in both eyes, she could not focus them on anything more than 10 feet away, corresponding to the dimensions of the room her father kept her in. Although the sufferings did not stop for the poor girl, when they had found her they gave her foster parents. Those foster parents weren't able to handle Genie and ended up abusing her as well for making noise. On internet there are lots of articles about the present situation of Genie Wiley. Many reports have suggested that Genie is a ward of the state of California, and is living in an undisclosed location in Los Angeles. In May 2008, ABC News reported that someone who spoke to them under condition of anonymity had hired a private investigator who located Genie in 2000. According to the investigator, she was living a simple lifestyle in a small private facility for mentally underdeveloped adults and appeared to be happy. And she only spoke a few words but could still communicate fairly well in sign language. If that's true, I hope she lives the remaining years of her life without any more suffering. 𝗟̱ciः𝗴𝗀𝗀𝗀 story is one of unimaginable hardship and extraordinary resilience. Kidnapped at the age of 11, she spent the next 18 years of her life held captive by Philip and Nancy Garrido in a hidden compound in their backyard. Despite the unimaginable horrors she endured, 𝗟̱ci never gave up hope. And her story is a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome even the most devastating circumstances. 𝗟̱ci was born in 1979. And lived a seemingly ordinary life in South Lake Tahoe, California, with her mother and stepfather. However, on June 10, 1991, her world was shattered when she was abducted by Philip Garrido while walking to a school bus stop. Garrido, a convicted sex offender, drove 𝗟̱ci to his home in Antioch, California, where he and his wife Nancy began their reign of terror. 𝗟̱ci's abduction was not a random act. Philip Garrido had been stalking her for months before he snatched her off the street. He had even practiced the abduction beforehand. Garrido drove 𝗟̱ci to his home in Antioch, California, where he had built a hidden compound in his backyard. The compound consisted of a small trailer, several outbuildings, and a soundproof room. It was surrounded by a fence and barbed wire, and it was patrolled by guard dogs. 𝗟̱ci was forced to endure physical and emotional abuse at the hands of her captors. Garrido would beat her, starve her, and keep her in isolation. He also subjected her to sexual abuse. For the next 18 years, 𝗟̱ci was held captive in a hidden compound in the Garrido's backyard. 𝗟̱ci was forced to endure physical and emotional abuse, as well as complete isolation from the outside world. She was denied an education and any contact with her family or friends. Garrido forced 𝗟̱ci to work as his housekeeper. She had to cook, clean, and do yard work. She was also forced to help him with his printing business. In 1997, 𝗟̱ci gave birth to a daughter, Angel. 2 years later, she gave birth to a second daughter, Starlet. Garrido forced 𝗟̱ci to raise the girls as his own, and he told them that she was their sister. In 2009, a glimmer of hope emerged. Philip Garrido was on parole and, in a bizarre twist of fate, was invited to give a talk at the University of California, Berkeley, about his sex crimes, his erratic behavior in the presence of his 2 young daughters. whom he claimed were his nieces, raised suspicion among campus police. When they discovered those girls to be the biological daughters of 𝗟𝗏𝗏, he was finally arrested, and 𝗟𝗪𝗃𝗏's identity was finally revealed. After 18 years of separation, 𝗟𝗪𝗃 was reunited with her mother. The media frenzy surrounding her case was overwhelming, but 𝗟𝗪𝗃 gradually began to rebuild her life. She wrote a best-selling memoir, A Stolen Life, which chronicled her ordeal and her journey to healing. She also became an advocate for victims of kidnapping and abuse, using her platform to raise awareness and support others who have gone through similar experiences. 𝗟𝗪𝗃 𝗟𝗏𝗃's story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. Elisabeth Fritzl was born in Amstetten, Austria, in April 6, 1966. She grew up in a seemingly normal family. She had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. Her father Joseph Fritzl was an electrician, and her mother Rosemarie Fritzl was a homemaker. However, beneath the surface, Joseph harbored a dark and distorted side. On the evening of August 28, 1984, Joseph called his daughter down to the basement of their family house. He needed help refitting a door in the recently renovated underground cellar. Elizabeth held the door for him, and as soon as it was hinged, Joseph forced Elizabeth inside and made her pass out with an ether-soaked towel. Joseph was able to convince Rosemary that their daughter had run away to join a cult. Elizabeth's mother Rosemary filed a complaint for a missing person after her disappearance. Almost a month later, Joseph sent the police the first of several letters he had forced Elizabeth to write while she was incarcerated. In the letter, she revealed how tired she was of living with her family and had moved in with a friend. She specifically warned her parents not to bother looking for her or else she would flee the country. She was locked in a sound-proofed cellar beneath the family home. This would become her prison for the next 2.5 decades. The basement where Elizabeth was held captive was a narrow and windowless concrete cell. It was equipped with basic amenities like a sink, toilet, and bed. But it was far from a home. Elizabeth spent her days in near-total isolation. Her only contact with the outside world was being supervised visits from Joseph. During this time, she endured horrific physical and sexual abuse at the hands of her father. Despite the unimaginable conditions, Elizabeth's will to survive never wavered. In the following years, she gave birth to 7 children fathered by Joseph. 3 of the children were kept imprisoned with her. The medical staff found her condition to be severe, while the other 4 were brought upstairs and raised by Joseph and Rosemary as their own. Elizabeth secretly cared for her children in the darkness, educating them as best she could and shielding them from the full extent of their father's cruelty. In 2008, Elizabeth's eldest daughter, Kirsten, fell seriously ill and required urgent medical attention. Joseph took Kirsten to the hospital. The staff at the hospital became suspicious of Joseph Fritzl when his daughter Kirsten, who was seriously ill, was admitted for medical treatment. Joseph brought Kirsten to the hospital, and the medical staff found her condition to be severe. In the course of medical examinations, they started questioning Joseph about the circumstances surrounding Kirsten's illness. The inconsistencies in Joseph's explanations and the unusual nature of Kirsten's illness raised red flags for the medical professionals. Concerned about the situation, they contacted Elizabeth Fritzl's family members. This marked the beginning of the investigation that eventually exposed the long-term captivity and abuse endured by Elizabeth and her children. This finally led to the authorities uncovering the horrific truth about Elizabeth's imprisonment. Joseph Fritzl was arrested and eventually sentenced to life imprisonment. Elizabeth and her children were at last freed from their underground hell. The world watched in shock and awe as they emerged from the darkness, blinking in the sunlight for the first time in decades. Elizabeth and her children faced a long and difficult journey of healing and adjustment to the outside world. They received extensive medical and psychological support, and their story became a global media sensation. In 2018, Joseph Fritzl died at the age of 83 in a secure mental hospital where he was serving his life sentence. His death brought a measure of closure to the case, but the scars of his horrific crimes remain etched on the lives of Elizabeth and her children. The saga of Blanche Monnier stands as a haunting narrative, revealing the dark underbelly of familial control. Born into affluence in 1849, Blanche was a young woman of grace and intellect, poised for a life filled with privilege. However, her story took a chilling turn when she fell in love with a lawyer 10-15 years older than her, deemed unsuitable by her controlling mother, Louise Celeste, and envious brother, Marcel. Blanche's refusal to sever ties led to a malevolent scheme orchestrated by her family. On a fateful day in 1874, she was abducted and imprisoned within the confines of her own home, transformed from a life of opulence to an attic cell. Blanche's existence became a bleak and desolate reality. For a staggering 25 years, Blanche endured unimaginable horrors within her attic prison. Confined to a dimly lit space, devoid of basic amenities, she suffered from malnourishment, physical deterioration and mental anguish. Denied proper sustenance and care, her pleas for help fell on deaf ears, trapping her in a nightmarish existence orchestrated by those she trusted most. The revelation of Blanche's captivity in May 23, 1901 was due to an anonymous letter sent to the authorities, detailed the grotesque reality of Blanche's confinement within her family's estate. It described the appalling conditions in which she lived, prompting the authorities to take action and investigate the matter. Simultaneously, a postman noticed a foul smell emanating from the Monnier residence. Concerned about the unpleasant odor, he reported it to the authorities, igniting an investigation into the source of the stench. This led the police to the Monnier estate, where they conducted a thorough search. The combination of the anonymous letter and the astute observation by the postman acted as catalysts, bringing to light the shocking truth of Blanche's long-term imprisonment, which had remained hidden for 25 years. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community and led to the exposure of the heinous crime committed by her family. The subsequent legal proceedings brought some semblance of justice. Louise's demise mere weeks after Blanche's discovery underscored the weight of societal judgment upon her heinous actions. Marcel, deemed mentally incompetent, evaded trial. Meanwhile, Blanche, liberated from her attic prison, faced a long and arduous road to recovery. Blanche Monnier's tale echoes through time, serving as a chilling reminder of the perils of familial tyranny. Her story transcends mere historical recounting. In her untimely passing in 1913, Blanche carried with her the scars of her unimaginable ordeal, never fully reclaiming the vigor and joy stolen from her.